tariffs may be good, they may not be good, but I was thinking about what you were saying with the government employees. There's going to be a lot of people that are no longer in the workforce that are going to all of a sudden become serial entrepreneurs.
Yep.
And they haven't got a clue.
Nope.
I mean, what we've been doing collectively for 60 years between you and I, owning businesses, there's a lot of life lump hard lessons that come into play, and you aren't outsourcing everything. You got to grind.
Right.
That's going to be interesting. What people are going to have to be prepared. They're really going to have to start thinking. All right, guys, welcome back to GrindWise. As always, you're here with Brent and Erle. Today, we're talking about the things that you're thinking about, and today's no different, Brent. There's a lot of stuff going on out there, but let's talk about that last episode we did where you correctly predicted something.
Yeah, I think I remember saying that the Chiefs and the Eagles were going to be in the Super Bowl, and who's going to the Super Bowl?
Something about Chiefs and Eagles is what I heard. Sure, that's...
Well, I also have a prediction ahead of that. I have the Chiefs by 10 in that game.
Really?
And actually, I went so far as I've got coasters I bought last weekend that have 4-time Super Bowl champs on them already, prepared.
Now that I live in Oklahoma, I got to be careful with a lot of my jokes. I tell them to you privately, but boy, I don't know. It's going to be a good game. That Barkley, he's something else. A running back, woo.
Yeah, he is. He blew me away in that game. We watched that game. That was pretty crazy. The Washington and the Eagles, the officials could give you a touchdown. Where have you ever heard that before?
I've never ever heard that. That just blew my mind. Hey, you do it again. We're just going to give them the touchdown. You knock it off, okay? Be nice. I was like, what is going on? That was on that last push into the.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I couldn't believe that. That was a fun game to watch, though. There was a lot of crazy trick plays and stuff like that.
Well, you got to pull all stops out. You know, that's what these guys are doing. They pull all stops out to get to the big game, right, and get the big bonus checks and endorsements. And
man, fourth down. I mean, I'd never seen teams go for it that much that early on in a game, back in the enemy territory, going for fourth down and getting it, over and over.
I didn't apparently watch very much Washington this year. Obviously, we didn't play them, so didn't watch a bunch of them. They said it's been par for course for them this year. They went and did that every single game. Funny enough, I don't know if this is true. You don't know if you can believe everything you see on Facebook. I saw that Tyreek Hill's probably going to Washington next year.
The rumor mill begins.
Yes, it does, and I'll start it here. You heard it here first.
Well, I'll tell you what, that was entertaining. That was quite the game. That was a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to Super Bowl here this next weekend and just seeing how it goes. I don't know. I mean, you see all the memes and they're funny. I love showing them to you just because it's funny to me. But I was a lifelong Seahawks fan, so living up in the Northwest, I watched them build the Kingdome back in the 70s, and I also watched them collapse it later on. But I've always been a Seahawks fan. I'm definitely becoming a Chiefs fan, not the bandwagon type, but I got some respect for the game, that's for sure.
Well, if you look at Pat's stats, just his stats compared to other quarterbacks, I mean, talk about, all the people doing the memes. If you actually look at, the stats, he's the one that gets called the roughing the passer call on him the least, and then you look at his stats for being a starting quarterback for 7 years, compared to like Joe Montana or John Elway. He's right there with those guys. He's passing Tom Brady right now, who was, I don't know how many years Tom Brady was a quarterback, 17 years or something like that. So
that's crazy.
It's just phenomenal. And I think we're going to see, there's a couple other quarterbacks out there that are phenomenal that I think Josh Allen, I think he's a great quarterback. He could be, we have a great group of guys in there right now that are quarterbacks that are going to be as good as Patrick, if they aren't already.
There's always questionable calls on both sides, but man, oh man, there's some funny stuff coming out. So it's a lot of information about football. I mean, people know that stuff backwards, forwards, three ways. Your 15-year-old daughter, you want to know something about football, what's going on, she can tell you. It's mind-blowing.
I know. It's crazy.
But as business owners, if we spend as much time knowing what we know about football and kind of paying attention to what's going on out there, there's a lot of crazy things going on out there, Brent. Like this whole tariff thing that's happening right now. It's all over the news. Today's February, 1st, 2nd?
2nd.
Today's February 2nd. And that's all that's over the news. I had to spend my whole morning just going, what is going on? How does this affect us? You've heard about this, right?
Yeah, I've heard some stuff about it. I haven't tuned into the news in a few days. I mean, I saw the stuff about the plane crashes and stuff. I didn't
in football.
In football, and but I hadn't really seen a whole lot about the tariffs. I knew that was something that was going to be coming, but I have no idea as far as researching into it and how that affects us, and how's that affect a business owner.
Everything that I'm reading, everything that I'm studying up on, right? And of course, we deal with business owners every single solitary day. That's our whole world, right? We know that stuff better than most people know the backs of baseball cards. But when it comes to this can have profound effects in a lot of different ways. But I wanted to kind of hone in the why, right? I mean, we're not here to get political on the show for sure. But we are here to bring information and give people like you something to think about when it comes to this, because it takes a little bit of research. But this morning, 25% tariff on goods coming in from Canada, 25% tariff on goods coming in from Mexico, 10% tariff on goods coming in from China. What does that mean? Right? That's the question.
Sounds like it's gonna cost us more money to go buy stuff. So it sounds like to me.
Possibly, right? There's different schools of thought. So when you start looking at it, so I pulled up some things. I was like, well, really, how big an impact is this, right? And then I circle around. Well, what's the when, the why, this, and everybody's got an opinion, but some of the stuff's not opinion. Some of the stuff's fact. Like 21% of cars that are brought into the U.S. are coming from Mexico and Canada right now, right? That's $69 billion worth of automobiles coming out of Mexico, $37 billion worth of vehicles coming out of Canada in here. And you assign a 25% tax to those type of things. That's, what is that? 25 cents on every dollar, right?
Yep.
That can end up being pretty significant. So what happens, I guess, it becomes the question, what happens to us down here? And really, if we were to go beyond all of this, and we'll talk about this, but the why, that's what I want to know. Why are we doing it? I mean, you hear, got to pay your fair share, this, that, and the other. Did you know almost every country out there has some sort of tariff?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, related to, some are higher, some are lower. I mean, like the Bahamas, there's some big tariffs over there. Chad, there's big tariffs in there. There's a top 10, right? We're not even in that top 10. But
what do you think the goal with increasing these tariffs on all these countries? Is it to bring U.S. jobs back and let U.S. companies flourish? Is that what that's intended to do?
Well, I think you kind of got to go all the way back, right? There's the what made us great. How did we boom, and this, that, and the other? There was the Great Depression. There was the first Industrial Revolution from towards the end of the 1700s to early on in the 1800s. And then there was the Second Industrial Revolution, which kind of ended right before World War II. But we all remember the stories about Detroit and manufacturing cars and Chevy and Ford and GM and Mopar and Dodge and all these, the Chrysler Corporation and stuff like that. That was a lot of jobs. It was a ton of jobs that were created. We used to manufacture a massive amount of things, but from 2000 to 2010, manufacturing jobs diminished by 34% in the U.S. What happened, and this is what I'm reading, is instead of becoming a production type company or a country based on manufacturing and building our own things, we shifted and became an innovation type country where we basically wanted to commercialize inventions, the technology and things like that. We discovered it. We're leading the board on quantum computing and computer chips and all this type of stuff. So we started licensing innovation and putting that forefront, right? It's our technology. We became an innovation country versus a creation, a manufacturing type country. Well, that shift opened the doors, right? China jumped on, all the way to Saudi Arabia, everywhere. People are creating goods. Not that we don't here in the U.S., but 34% from 2000 to 2010. So you impose these tariffs. Now you kind of force a hand is how I'm reading it. And there's a couple different schools of thought. One of the schools of thought is if they have to, it costs them that much more to send stuff in here, you're left with a couple options, right? Especially if we start creating our own stuff. You can lower your price, your cost of goods, sending it in so you can still stay competitive in the U.S. market, which creates a boom. Those 25% tariffs are still in place, and that goes to help fund projects and things within the government. And that's money collected. It lowers the deficit, is one school of thought, right? Another school of thought is, though, that if you're buying a board, which, by the way, we what was it on the wood? It was crazy. I was like, you got to be kidding. We're bringing in that much. There's the stats on tequila. We bring in a lot of doggone wood from Canada. 85% of the lumber that's imported into the U.S. comes out of Canada. So let's say you're buying a board that's $10. Now that board's $12.50. So somebody who creates the board in the U.S., they got a $10 board too. Now they're left the option. Oh, we get to be competitive all of a sudden, or we can line our pockets even more and just stay right on par because they're getting, so it creates more money. So that's, a lot of economists thinks it's going to be the latter right there. I think the overarching view behind it is, paying the fair share, and trying to create manufacturing back at home. But there's a lot of people that are saying we don't have the resources, the raw goods to do the things. For instance, 75% of U.S. toys, PlayStation, Xbox, not to freak you kids out at home. I don't even know if you're watching this, but that stuff comes out of China. 75% of them, right? What was it on the smartphone? 75% of smartphones come out of China. These little dude. I mean, we go back to flip phones or.
Well, that sounds like what needs to happen is those companies need to establish in the U.S. I mean, that's, at the end of the day, if they're selling billions of smartphones, they're going to have a 25 or whatever % tariff over there in China. I mean, that's crazy. Wasn't there?
Are you saying the foreign countries come into the U.S. and set up business?
Well, they could set up an operation here and manufacture the products here, but by using U.S. employees. I feel like that's what the tariffs are trying to do. Just like Ford, for instance, Ford moved to manufacturing plants down to Mexico during the past 4 years. I think John Deere did as well.
Well, John Deere was threatened with 200% tariffs if they moved.
Okay, so
that's what that was on John Deere.
Okay.
Yeah, I was reading a little bit on that this morning. Manufacturing's moving outside of the country because availability of resources, labor is far more inexpensive, things like that. And they're like, okay, well, we'll compete with our foreign counterparts, but we'll move our manufacturing out of the country, which negates the opportunity for workers. But then you start looking at agriculture, right? Beans and corn and all that kind of stuff. Where was it? I was looking at that too. Mexico supplies 63% of U.S. vegetables and produce. 63%. We're down in avocados and all that. I don't know a lot of people making, growing avocados up in Michigan or anything like that, but that's a lot of produce. 47% of fruit and nuts come out of there. Imported beer, 80% of it comes out of Mexico.
Really?
Yeah.
That's shocking.
$4.6 billion in tequila. So if you're a tequila fan, that might get a little more expensive. Otherwise, we're gonna have to start growing some agave up here and making some tequila.
Let me pivot you a little because this is a lot of talk I've been hearing, and I'm just curious what your thoughts are on this. The new administration talking about Canada and Mexico being part of the United States. Doesn't that solve the tariff problem with them?
Well, I think there's a lot bigger play on it. Here's what's happening right now. Trudeau announced this morning that, you want to tariff us? We'll tariff you. Right. So now they're imposing 25% tariffs and the new administration saying, well, we'll just go 50%. How's that? It's a little tit for tat thing going on here. It appears that the administration's view is we got to bring work back into the U.S. and this is how we do it. The external view, a lot of economists are saying, that's not going to work. The costs are just going to get passed on. The people in the U.S., the big companies, they're just going to go, oh, well, these are more expensive here. We'll just raise our prices, stay in line with these other companies. But there's also the school of thought that, okay, if you want your goods in the U.S., yeah, you're getting tariffed on it, but you're going to have to lower price. You're not going to make as much on it as you used to make. So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. I think at the end of the day, we're far more stable than probably Canada or U.S. I think in a tariff war, by all accounts, we end up winning. But who ends up losing? I think the consumers end up losing. I think the people like you and I think we lose when it goes to buying produce, but going to buy cars, because 43% of auto parts come out of Mexico, right? Okay. So used cars, people stop trading them in. Those used cars become far more valuable.
Right.
They hang on to them. They're harder to get, right? You aren't bringing in as many new cars because it's too doggone expensive. So now it just changes the whole dynamic. I think it's going to be a little bit rough for a while. That's my feeling. So the question becomes, as a business person, how do you prepare for it? What do you do?
I guess so. As we've been talking about this, I keep thinking about, and I didn't even think we were going to talk about this, but we sit with business owners in profit touring and have to tell them they need to raise their price.
Right.
And they don't want to, because they don't want to lose their consumers, and they're going to lose people. I mean, every business is going to lose people if everybody has raised their prices, people are going to start picking and choosing what they're going to end up, paying for. And that brings up other things, what's going to be struggle after consumers can't go out and buy everything they want to buy in a normal day to day. They're not going to go on vacations. They're not going to buy boats and RVs and things like that. And that's what kind of happened in 08. A lot of manufacturing companies shut down because they were manufacturing RVs, and boat companies been around for 30, 40 years, shut down because things got too expensive and nobody could afford to have those luxury items.
So the question becomes, does it force our hand? Do we get back into the manufacturing game, start sliding away from the innovation game? I mean, what was Venevere Bush or something like that was the guy's name who created this whole innovation thing, this innovation revolution, where as a country, that's what we hang our hats on. Innovation is Silicon Valley and all that kind of stuff. We're licensing technology left and right. And then we're having other countries create that technology. Of course, they steal the innovations. A lot of them do. So where do we go? What do we do? How do we prepare as a business? I don't know that there's a definitive answer, because we don't really know which way it's going to swing. But here's what I would say to people out there. Spend some time reading on it. Educate yourself, because there's a lot of people with some wild opinions. Everybody's got opinions, right?
Yep.
I mean, good Lord, just go on the internet. It's keyboard warriors. I spend more time parsing through Happy Horse Pucky, trying to find something that's substantial to even have an opinion, right? And I think the jury's still out for me on the opinion side of it with this. I think that manufacturing, I think we missed the mark when manufacturing went away. I really do. Lost a lot of jobs.
So I grew up in a small rural area in Kansas, and I forget what they called it. They called it the manufacturing beltway or something. And there's every one of those small towns relies on manufacturing.
Right.
And the small town that I'm actually from, whenever they had camper manufacturers, they've had boat manufacturers, they've had all that in there, and they come and go. The camper one was there forever. 08 killed them pretty much. They stayed and had some things for a few years. But I kept telling the people in charge of the city, the mayors and everybody else over there, I said, the only way for manufacturing to survive, in my opinion, is it's got to be something that has a government contract. It needs to be firearms. It needs to be airplanes. It needs to be something along those lines. And that's actually where a lot of those manufacturing jobs went to. People used to be manufacturing campers, and now manufacturing airplane parts for the Army, for the Air Force.
Well, it's going to be, I think it's going to be a crazy ride, not to be conspiratorial, but gosh, you see the stuff out there, right? So let's say, we got 63% of fruits and vegetables coming out of Mexico. Let's say the tariffs are so exorbitant, you just can't afford to buy them, right? Eggs. The other day I went and I got, I buy those boxes, 60 eggs. It used to be like $9 and $10 and $12. It's over $20 for a box of eggs now. I'm like, what's going on?
What's funny about that is I never bought the eggs in that box of 20. And I was at the store the other day and I was looking at the pack of 18 and those are like $9 for 18 or something. And I was like, I looked over at those 20 and I go, that's a good deal. And then I come over to your house and you're like, that's a terrible deal.
That's a terrible deal. I'm like, I got to go start buying some chickens or something like that. Not that we can't afford eggs, but it's crazy, right?
That's what's going to happen. That's what's going to happen. We're going to see the hobby farm come back. We're going to see people, we used to have in our backyard, a little elevated garden where we grew our own vegetables and our own stuff. Of course.
So rolling back over to the conspiracy side of things, and I hate to do it, but you've just seen it like 10,000 times. All the farmlands, the producing fertile lands are getting bought up by big conglomerates. Oh, Gates buying them. I was able to dispel a lot of the rumors about China owning them, but they bought up a lot of the food companies and stuff like that. If we have to start producing our own produce again, man, where are we going to do it?
Right.
Or now are we leasing the land from Gates? Is that what we're doing? I hate the conspiracy side of thing, but it's kind of interesting, right? Yeah. What's true, what's not true, and stuff like that.
Well, you see these. So you say you figured out that China. I've heard that China is one of the largest landowners in the United States.
So I don't think that they are. What I was finding, like Smithfield pork, stuff like that. China owns a bunch of them. Trump's he's done a lot to try to push that stuff out, but I know as far as food production, they've gotten really big on major food processors and stuff like that. Of course, I owned a business for a long time, so that was in that realm, and I would always hear stories about it. And my gosh, I'm like, why isn't China offering me $1 billion? Right. But I remember when Smithfield did it, who had about 65,000 customers, my phone was just blowing up, going, wait, is Smithfield still American owned or is it China owned, or what's the story here? And I don't think we ever get the straight skinny on stuff, but as business owners, I think it's going to be somewhat turbulent. Not that things haven't been turbulent. It's just going to be watching this stuff ferret out. I think probably being stocked up, looking at everything, taking a look at your EBITDA again.
Yeah.
Because this is really going to affect EBITDA.
Yeah.
Right.
100%.
When business start looking at their bottom line. So what preemptively should you be doing?
So you also bring up another point, with all these jobs potentially could be coming back maybe, or people are, less foreign goods are getting bought. So more things in the U.S. are being manufactured and produced. So it could be creating jobs. I have a couple of friends that are federal employees that last week all got an email that just said, resign, and you'll get paid till September 30th or something, and they get some part of their pension or whatever. But these are people that have been government employees for 20 plus years.
That's crazy.
And it went out to every single one of them. So
every one of them in the government got it, or just like certain departments and stuff?
So one of my friends is a federal agent, one's an IRS agent. So that tells you, and they said everybody got them. I know that like the military didn't get them, people like that didn't get them, but it was strictly probably Secret Service didn't get them, but other federal agencies did get them.
A lot of agencies, a lot of people making shifts,
a lot of things. Yeah. And so what do you think is going to happen there? They're going to go out and look for work, and they're not going to find it.
No, they're not going to find, not after 20 years in a federal job. You're overqualified, or you're too old, or
all those people, everybody that's an entrepreneur, whether they started to be an entrepreneur or they just fell into entrepreneurship, a lot of people have some really good ideas out there. And I see people that are currently government employees having some businesses come out that changed the world, right? And so this could be an opportunity. And I'm talking to those people right now because, there's always something around the corner, right? And so they got this email. They have till the 5th, which is like,
oh, you got to be kidding me! That soon.
They have till February 5th. So, and I have a copy of the email. I could even show it to you, but they have till February 5th to decide. So
decide whether they're resigning or getting fired, or
So if they stay,
or they're rolling the dice.
They're rolling the dice.
Okay.
If they stay, they may or may not have a job September 30th.
Wow.
But it's all about the government trying to control spending, come back, bring things back, and it's a step.
Well, it's been out of hand for a long time. I don't care how you slice it. That's just. You see this again. This isn't conspiratorial. This is mainstream news. But there's $50 million allocated for condoms in what was it, Ukraine?
Yeah,
$50 million.
Yeah. Why?
I don't
They
know.
don't want them reproducing.
I don't know what's going on. 50. And who pays for those condoms?
Yeah, we do.
We do. So look, government spend. There's been some spending. I mean, I just can't believe
So we
the
go
stuff that
to
goes on. So
we go back on that side. I don't remember. It was probably during the whole election cycle, but there was something was released on like 60 Minutes or something that said there's a whole government organization that, I don't know, it's something stupid, like they watch a monkey write his name. I mean, it's something stupid, but they have like a $1 billion budget for this.
So a monkey can write his name?
Yeah. It's something stupid. I mean, you know, it's not exactly that, but I just had to come up with something because I don't know exactly what it is. But it's something silly. You're like, the government is spending $1 billion a year on this.
Well, can you imagine? I mean, we own businesses. Can you imagine at some point you're looking at the balance sheet and you're like, Erle, what are you doing? I see you spent $100,000 on bubble gum for what? You know, that's what it's like to me. And so you've got all these things. You got to fix some problems, right? And I think one of the big problems is we don't make things here anymore. Your gross national product, you've got to create something, right? You have to. You can't be just selling ideas. This innovation thing, I don't think it works because it's put other countries in the position. We'll produce it and we'll just sell it to you. You guys don't want to produce it, we'll produce it. We'll do it for cheap. And there's a lot of bad practices out there, you know, for sure. Child labor laws and people not getting paid fair, but for crying out loud, you can't continue to say to business owners, well, now you got to pay that person $20 an hour. Now you got to pay that person $22 an hour because they got to keep up with things, because all that happens is it gets passed on to us. I remember first entering the workforce, you know, way back when, don't start dating me, but I was getting paid 25 cents an hour, and I wasn't worth 25 cents an hour, frankly, at the time. And you just progress through. I remember late 80s making $4.75 and thinking I'd hit baller status because I'm making that kind of money. Now, and moreover, I remember being in Alaska in my late teens, and hitting top wage, which was $10 an hour. And man, if you got time and now, that's $15. If you worked on a Sunday, that's double time. And that's minimum wage now to do this.
Yep.
It just blows my mind. So all these things, these programs they put in, it's going to cost somebody. At the end of the day, it costs us, right?
Right.
So this, I don't know what's going to happen.
Well, let me ask you something. You know, my youngest daughter keeps talking about starting a business.
Right.
So she's talking with my wife the other day, and they're talking about, you maybe going ahead and taking that step. And my daughter, you know, she's young and she doesn't know, but she says, my wife goes, we got to learn how to sew. She wants to start a clothing line. She goes, why do I have to sew? I'm going to get one of those other countries over there to do it for me.
No,
and I'm like,
didn't.
and I was
really?
Yes. And so I'm like, well, this is what we've become accustomed to. When I was younger, when you were younger, and we had a dream to open a clothing line, we were in the garage making the stuff, and we were, you know, I mean, I know how to sew. You probably know how to sew just because
you had to.
And so now it's all,
which is why I don't sew today. Just FYI. But,
but now it's programmed in their head that I got this idea. I'm going to sell it to China. I'm going to be the middleman, and I'm going to make money.
So it's an idea. It's an innovation. I've got an innovation here. I created, this is my innovation, and I'm going to outsource all the manufacturing of it somewhere else, but I'm going to use that this is what's happened with the country.
Yep.
So tariffs may be good. They may not be good, but I was thinking about what you were saying with the government employees. There's going to be a lot of people that are no longer in the workforce that are going to all of a sudden become serial entrepreneurs.
Yep.
And they haven't got a clue.
Nope.
I mean, what we've been doing collectively for 60 years between you and I, owning businesses, there's a lot of life lump hard lessons that come into play, and you aren't outsourcing everything. You got to grind.
Right.
That's going to be interesting. Boy, people are going to have to be prepared. They're really going to have to start thinking, what am I going to do? And there's going to be a lot of businesses, I think, that will probably go away.
Yep.
There's always this weird pause, you know, when things increase in price, then people finally acclimate and they go, what am I going to do? I got to buy the eggs.
Yep.
You know, I'm either going to buy some chickens or I got to buy the eggs. I guess I'll buy the eggs for twice what I paid for them, you know, 9 years ago. And I get prices go up at times, but they have to go up when you're constantly raising minimum wage and things like that. It's just, I don't know. It's
going to be interesting for sure. This whole next year is going to be, It's going to be, like you said, people starting businesses. I'm actually excited to start talking to some of these people that said, you know what, I said, screw it. I resigned and I'm going to go do something great. And I'm going to build this big company and, whatever. I'm excited for those people. I'm ready to talk to them and get them up and going, help them with the struggles. Right. So, not that there's a shortage of people to talk to out there, but I would love nothing more than to see this country is founded on the small back of the small business.
Yeah.
Why not? Why don't we go back to it?
Well, we got to protect them.
Yeah.
We got to bring the information. We got to protect them. And look, to me, this isn't doom and gloom. This is just another in a long list of, okay, now what do we do? How do we pivot? Because you can't stop. I mean, people can wring their hands, they can lament, they can cry out, they can wail. But at the end of the day, you can't stop really what's going on, right? Are you going to burn down a building? You're going to riot in the streets? I mean, you're going to have to make plans to make a plan. You're going to have something going on, right? So if you know what's coming, you better start thinking in terms of how am I going to protect my business and what's the smartest pivot for me as it relates to that business. And I think one of the smartest pivots any business can make is really looking at an overhaul of where do you sit? Because what you did yesterday and what you did a year ago might not be the best thing to be doing tomorrow.
Right.
So certainly we have resources for that. I mean, people can always reach out to us. We know the people and stuff like that, but they should start taking a look at their businesses, because if you get caught,
you're right. People do, they get complacent. And, I can't tell you how many business owners I talk to. They're like, man, last year was great. And then all of a sudden we had 3 bad months and now we're backpedaling. Now we got to figure out how to, so trying to always look forward, not look in the rearview mirror. Right.
Well, it's like driving a car and never changing the oil. That's really what it is. People do this in business. We had Brittany Winter on here, I don't know, a couple episodes ago, and she was showing us the AI software that can take any business, show it how to triple their profits, double their revenue without spending anything extra on marketing or advertising. And that was neat. I mean, I haven't stopped thinking about that, because that's the overhaul that businesses need. We all talk in business about KPIs, key performance indicators, and the things that through little micro changes can shift your whole business. If you're driving your car and you haven't changed the oil in a while, if you're running your business and you haven't made any changes or taken a look at it, right now, especially with these things that are going on, it might be a good time to take a look at it. And, let's put that link at the bottom of this episode again for people if they want to reach out to Brittany or any other master coaches there at Profit Touring. I think that'd be a good idea.
Yeah, I think so too. Like I said, I mean, when I walk into a business and I'm going there to see the business owner, I have a whole different outlook on it now, knowing all the stuff that we know, and I always have to go back to, I always say, you hear me say this a lot, I've probably said it on every single episode, we live in a world where you don't know what you don't know. Mm-hmm. And us business owners, entrepreneurs, have always focused on what we knew.
Right.
And if we didn't know something, a lot of people were never like go out and try to figure out and learn it. And I've had more business owners in the past 6 months tell me, I realize I don't know what I'm doing here and I need help.
Well, that's what started us on our journey.
Yep, 100%.
I mean, it's 60 years collective business ownership between the two of us. And the amount of things that we found that we didn't know, that we were wholly unaware, but we were so successful in business. We needed overhauls, 25 years ago and every year thereafter. So, I mean, that's what we do. That's what we do here at GrindWise. We bring the information for you. It's opinions are opinions, thoughts are thoughts, but it's something for you guys to contemplate and think about as Brent and I have these conversations. You don't have to get in and dig in every single day and try to figure out what's current and what's crazy. But if you don't make a pivot in business, if you don't start thinking, okay, this is happening, I better do something to protect against it, you're going to be that person driving down the road and your engine's going to seize and you aren't going to know why, because you didn't do any of the preventive maintenance to keep it running. And that's how it works with business.
Yep, I agree. That's you hit it nail right on the head. I mean, that's if you're not trying to look forward, you're always going to be looking backwards and trying to figure out what happened where you misstepped.
Well, I think these tariffs are going to affect a lot of people. I think some of it's going to be positive, some of it's going to be negative. I think at the end of the day, it's all going to ferret out. The sun's going to rise again tomorrow.
Yep.
Right. It is. And there's not a person that watches this that doesn't put their pants on one leg at a time, just like we do. We're no better. We're no different. But the difference is being self-aware, knowing this is my dream. And if this is my dream, there's a lot of people that are entering the workforce that now might compete against me in my dream, right? You may not be unique anymore as it relates to business. So if you're not unique, you better figure out how to be different and be ahead of the curve. That's why we talk about AI, right? It changes daily, hourly. It's just nuts. If you aren't watching us, if you're paying attention to the different things that are on our sites and stuff like that, so you can stay educated, you're doing yourself a disservice. And, but what's that old thing? Remember when we were kids and it said, the more you know, the stars and stuff like that. But, I'll tell you what, it's crazy out there. And
the whole thing with you brought up another point there. The AI, I mean, the AI, it's changing everything. So now we've got real people that are going to be entering the workforce or becoming entrepreneurs. There's going to be a huge uptick in more AI softwares out there that people are going to, come up with all sorts of things. I mean, manufacturing moves back here. It used to be let's just say it took 100 people to assemble one car. Now they can do it with robots and like 3 people.
I can't even go to, not that I go to fast food a lot, but you're out on the road. Sometimes you do, and you don't even see real people. You just go in there and you're hitting a screen, you're ordering, and you go through a drive-thru and they're like, are you using the app today? And I'm like, what app? I just want to order a burger. This stuff drives me nuts.
I went to Costco last weekend and they have these big monstrosity, or not, Sam's, these big old huge things out on the exit now. And I'm like, and they check your receipt as you're walking out the door. And I walk up to the lady and go, is this a thing that I could just walk through? And if
is that Sam's Club?
Yeah, Sam's Club. Is this a thing if I just walk through and I put everything in my car and just walk out and I get charged? And she's like, no, but you can download the app and scan and you don't have to go through the checkout. And I was like, but that thing was that she showed me pictures. Took pictures of everything in my car. And I was like, this is getting crazy. And I think that the next thing, and we talked about this weekend, is when are you going to get your chip put in?
Never. I'm just going to get really good at farming, and I'm already a good hunter. There isn't going to be any chips getting put in me, but that's a whole other story for a whole other show. Look, if you guys are watching this today, you're paying attention to Brent and I, you got the same concerns that we have every single day when we wake up. It's about pivoting and positioning your business so that for you and your family, you have longevity and you don't get as surprised as maybe some people were. Don't get caught flat-footed. That's the old boxer analogy. But I think it's a good topic, Brent. I think it's something worthy of discussion. Certainly, if any of you want to reach out and pull some of the resources that Brent and I put together, we'll put some links there. We're happy to talk to you. People call us all the time from the show. But with that, Brent, I'd have to say,
we're out.
We're out.